Welcome to our Revive Studios talk show and podcast hosted by Victory Lyric. Get ready to be inspired to be all you were called and created to be. Join us as we showcase nationwide artisans and their unique stories. This is your opportunity to explore creativity with diverse crafts, recipes, and tutorials with practical tips for unleashing your artistic side. Let's get ready for spiritual upliftment, healing stories, miracles, and divine goodness. Get ready for an amazing segment of our Revive Studios talk show and podcast with host Victory Lyric.
Welcome to our Revive Studios. We are so glad you guys are back with us today. And I have an amazing guest with me today, Lena Cebula. And she is just a powerhouse, you guys. She has an amazing testimony and is doing some amazing new things. And we are excited to hear all about it. So, Lena, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. So excited for today's conversation.
Oh yeah, so are we. So I want to, have you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, and we'd love to kind of hear about you.
Absolutely. I'm a wife and a mother of three beautiful but really rambunctious kiddos. I am author of spiritual autobiography called Miraculous, My Journey from Hell to Heaven. And
Okay.
I am drug addiction and human trafficking survivor. And today I'm sharing the gospel, the good news of God's love, and I'm creating awareness about realities of human trafficking.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here to talk about that. It's a very important subject, and I think that we often, have it mentioned here and there, but you're an actual survivor, and you wrote the book Miraculous, is what it was called?
Yes.
Yes. And so, yeah, tell us a little bit more about that. Obviously, you have an accent. I know where you're from, but tell our audience about where you're from.
Absolutely. I'm actually Russian from Ukraine because when I was born in USSR.
Okay.
So my country fell apart when I was 11 years old. But when you were talking, I was actually thinking about the fact that I thought that I bring this story to the grave, that it's never going to be not only air out, and all over social media and in the book as well. I thought it's story of shame, guilt, and condemnation, and that's why I hid that. And now I know it's God's story of salvation. And on top of it, right now I have my own podcast when I'm sharing my story. And if you guys want more details, you can go and check that as well. It's called Love and Beloved. And I just finished my certification as well as a Christian leadership life coach, and which is all came from that story actually. And it's so miraculous. I don't want to use the word bizarre, but that's how it's in my brain because God using this story of from you know it's just so um like beauty from ashes. That's why I cannot
Yes.
even find the words. So little bit about myself as well, so you would know where I'm coming from, and then we're gonna talk about little bit about what is happening today, which is really interesting. So
Sure.
I was born and raised in USSR, and my parents was struggle in their marriage, and they, of course, like I told you about the problems in my country, so they trying to survive through this discord, but couldn't handle, and they became an alcoholics. They lost their well-paid jobs, and our home was invested with cockroaches, mice, black mold, and we really like starving, and we living in poverty. And my home was full of strangers who brought booze and drugs, but they brought food as well. So it was the opportunity for me to eat. So I was hanging out around, thinking that I could eat something. And that's how I end up an easy target for those guys from very early age. The government and my parents didn't protect me. So I was abused, raped, beaten numerous times, And when things couldn't, like, I literally thought things couldn't get any worse. 1 month before my 15th birthday, I woke up with severe abdominal pain, and in the hospital was determined that I'm in labor. And I actually didn't know I was pregnant. I didn't know who her father was. And my baby girl died 3 months later from health complications.
Oh,
So I carry her casket to the cemetery in my arms, and for the next 20 years, this image has plagued my mind and my soul.
oh,
I suffered with depression, anxiety, panic attacks. And because there was nobody partnering up with me, console me through grief, or actually even asking question why this kid end up in a hospital with broken bones, concussions, or like alcohol or drug overuse. So I was looking for any ways to medicate my pain, and it was not constructive whatsoever. But like 14-year-old kid doesn't really know what is constructive. And I use drugs and booze. And then when I have hope to change my life, and I trusted some people, and they actually sold me into human trafficking into foreign country. But there in brothel in Israel, I one of my bodyguard shared the gospel with me, and I actually even ended up in Jerusalem praying at the prayer wall to
oh,
God. And it was an amazing experience because I knew people like me does not deserve mercy or compassion or any um, this holy audience, because I was prostitute, drug addict, alcoholic. But God did answer my prayer, and I was in awe, and that's what triggered me to actually leave this kind of situation. And usually, guys, you don't leave this kind of situation alive unless you have been rescued. But by the grace of God, they let me go, and I end up in Ukraine again. But my other bodyguard, who was like a brother to me, stole, like cheated me out of all possession that I accumulate, and my trustworthy aunt stole all my money. So I felt so betrayed, and I didn't know what to do. So I turned to what was familiar. I was on drugs again, and soon I became a right hand of the number one drug dealer in my city, thinking that it's gonna bring me peace and worth and value because of the position and influence and money. But I had unlimited amount of drugs, and I knew that I'm gonna be like in jail or in a cemetery from overdose, or like being murdered for these drugs. But I decided to quit again cold turkey. And when I quit heroin second time, I actually didn't know what to do because the country was like in really bad state. So second time, I actually willingly sold myself into the sex trade, because I thought was a solution to actually leave the country. But this time they brought me to Canada, and here in Canada, I have an opportunity to start a new life. So I ran away. I lived in shelter. I learned English. I went to government credit school. I became a hairstylist. I owned I was hairstylist for 14 years, and I owned a hair salon for 16 years.
wow,
And while I was in school, I met wonderful man who is my husband now of 20 years. Now we have
wow.
three wonderful kiddos. And what's interesting about him too, that he's a pastor son, and that's how I end up in church. In 2011, I give my life to Christ and receive the forgiveness and love and peace. And that's where my journey begins to what happening now. But I literally, sorry guys, like I summarized this like so pretty fast because I'm so excited about my life right now. But I want you to still have a glimpse what happened to me in the past, because I want you to understand that this success with my mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health didn't happen overnight. It took me 10 years with Christ and 20 years without Christ to actually get where I am right now. And if you want to know more details, go read my book or check out my podcast. But this is my story in a nutshell. So thank you so much for listening.
Oh no, there you packed in a lot there, but in the beginning when you were about to tell your story and you were talking about, you thought you would kind of take it to the grave and that it would be something that you would hide. And I this past week, I've had some revelation, like the Lord has been giving me some revelation. And I've been asking the Lord, well, where's the power, like more power in this Western church? Why are we missing that? Why do you say that I have the power to raise people from the dead and cast out demons and whatnot, but I'm not seeing that like in my life, that people are being healed when I put my hand on them, or those kind of things. And the Lord was showing me in several different places, but one of those was a scripture that came to mind whenever you were saying that. He said, it's 2 Corinthians 12:9. It's the English Standard Version. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weakness. Most people kind of stop there. But the next part is what hit me. It slammed me. So that the power of Christ may rest upon me. And it's
Amen.
it's the power that you have to change lives. I'm sitting here worrying about why I'm not like raising the dead. Well, I might be raising the dead in the heart though, because when I'm telling my story and you're telling your story, we're talking about the weakness, but where God's power came and was there for us and made the change. Anyway, I just I just was thinking that while you were talking, like, thank goodness you didn't take it to the grave, because it would have created weakness, a hidden weakness and whatnot in your life, trying to keep it covered. But because you're sharing and you're boasting about the Lord's greatness versus yours, you have power of Christ all over you to change lives, which is exactly what you were about to talk about, is what you're doing now. But I just was excited about, that, because you're
That's
literally
awesome
an
that you
example.
actually touch on that, because when God called me to close my hair salon, and I thought it was my dream because was my passion, and I thought I didn't hear the Lord correctly. So it took me a year to actually be an obedient child. But interestingly enough, when he called me to share my story and write this book, which is another like really cool, miraculous story, I cried for 3 days. I didn't want to tell people who I was because I already created this persona. I was a wife and a mother. I was part of the church. I was volunteering. I'm cooking for people. I'm with my kids, so people see what you perceive you by the way you present. So they
Sure.
actually, nobody ever know anything about anybody until you
Hmm.
tell them.
Sure.
So, and an interesting part that when he called me to share my story, he didn't call me when I was a baby Christian. He already loved me for 5 years. I was so in love with his faithfulness and grace to me and his love for me. So I said yes, only to be obedient to God. I didn't want to write the book. I didn't want to share my story. And trust me, guys, when I was sharing my first 5 minutes, I have like panic attacks. I was crying. I couldn't sleep because for 20 years, the enemy told me that this is shame, guilt, and condemnation, that people gonna reject me, that they're gonna stone me, that they're gonna abandon me like my parents did. So all those
Oh.
anxieties were so hard on me those first days, but all God was telling me through all this experience, just trust me. And I was trusting him because I just saw his faithfulness to me through his life, through my life. And when I start writing the book, that's what it changed my life first. And that's what amazing thing that God does. First he redeemed and healed me through this process, and then he used me as a vessel to serve others. But the
Yeah.
amazing part that in my mind, my life was, oh, before Christ, and when I turned 31, it was after Christ. And when I was writing the book since I was 6 years old, I'm like, oh, God, show up here. I was praying here. I was praying in Jerusalem to him. So it was like I saw his hand through all the pits and despair of my life, thinking that he wasn't there. And you know what Bible says to us? I need you in your mother's womb. I have a plans for you. I already have everything, so I know you. So until I wrote that book, I have like no even like this realization that God was follow right beside me everywhere, every time. So if you're in a pit of despair and in the darkness and you think like God don't see, don't hear, don't feel, because you don't feel and don't know that He's there, He is there, and He loving on you. And that's why you have hope, no matter if you know that one day it's going to be better or not, because sometimes it's so dark and we're so close so we don't see. But now looking back, I'm thinking this is the best thing that ever happened to me, that he asked me to look back and I was obedient to step out in faith and actually share my story. And now 3 years later, honestly, I'm like, where I'm going, let me speak, give me an hour, give me 2 hours, I want to do it, I want
Love
to
it.
share, I want to do it. And
Hmm.
it's no more secret, like you said, Victory. There's no more darkness. There's no like powers of the enemy with the lies to saying who I am, because I know who I am and I'm loved, and seeing how much people loving on me. So it's like literally broke so many strongholds, like, and I'm
Yes.
loving it.
Yes, isn't it true? It's like, I mentioned this before in my show, but there's this song by Anthony Evans Jr. called "The Secret," and it's like when we keep a secret, it's like the enemy has the power, and he keeps just reminding us, and like you're saying, telling us ugly things about ourselves. This is what they're going to think and whatnot. And then when you tell your story, but I'm the beloved, and this is how God walked me through it as the beloved. And when you tell your story and you glorify Him, it's like it sets you free. And you're just so right. It gives you so much freedom. And then when your cup is full of freedom, well, you just want to give it to everyone. So I love it. And I love how you were saying you overflowed basically with God's love. Because He had given you so much love, that was your point of obedience. I think so many times we work so hard, like people work so hard to try to not sin or, not do these things because they want to be good. But true relationship with the Lord, like you're describing, is I decided to say yes to the Lord about this, writing this book and whatnot, and telling my story because He loved me so much that I just had to love Him back. And that's what really changes our lives, isn't it? It's not that
Absolutely.
trying, no striving, right?
Absolutely. And I keep like, I have a couple notes in front of me,
Hmm.
and I have this verse. This means that anyone who belong to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone, and new life has begun. It's Corinthians 5:17. And it's interesting part, why I was afraid to look into my past, because there was pain, there was rape, there was abuse, there was suffering, there was grief and loss, abandonment, trauma, so much distrust, like betrayal. I was afraid of feeling that. I thought like it's just gonna kill me to feel that, to go there. But
Sure.
guess what? Going back with God, I had nothing. I had compassion for myself. I had so much peace. I was like almost like watching a movie or reading a book. I'm thinking
Oh,
about it and I cried. You know what I'm cried? I cried about this huge overwhelm of gratitude that God didn't let me die then, and then and
yes.
then and every time he provided the some kind of like exit, maybe like it was from one frying pan to another, from one fire to another. I don't know what
I
what
like
is
that
what is
analogy.
calling, I have three languages in my head, so I'm trying to like say those thing, but from one fire to another or whatever.
Mhm.
But it always was seeking, it always was pushing. I heard his voice in my like soul that I made for more. Before I thought like, wow, I quit heroin on a cold turkey twice by myself. Now I know it's God's grace. People don't recover from stuff like that. And the fact that I have healthy organs, healthy mind, I don't have any health issues, being like on hardcore drugs and being junk and homeless for almost like 20 years, you cannot come out like whole and healthy, and although, you know what, guys, like I'm telling you right now, I've all these 10 years I'm working with the therapists and psychotherapists about the PTSD, like they not disappearing. I have my prayer army. I'm working on my self-development, like, and my spiritual development. I'm learning all this stuff about myself, about my faith, about my life. It's not like I just come out and I'm glorious and shiny like Jesus. One day I will be, but the process, I still taking action to look, wow, I have really negative emotion about this and that. And I have to change it. And I go to God, and then I learn how to fix that. But the fact is, that was the huge like relief for me to actually go into my past and reconcile with myself, reconcile with my family. And actually that's what really brought me healing to my soul.
Yes, yes. No, thank you, Lena, for saying that though, because that is a lie. I believe a lie of the enemy that says the minute that you get saved, that everything should be perfect. And we're still humans. We still have things from the past. And, that's stuff that we need to walk through, and we need to walk through it with the Lord. But it's a journey of salvation.
Yes,
And, I kind of joke sometimes that we're like an onion, and God just keeps peeling back and peeling back the layers of messes and trauma and making us more whole. But it's never going to end until we, meet Him face to face. And if we believe the lie that we're, supposed to be perfect and fine the minute we get saved, then we're going to feel like failures. And
absolutely.
that can really lead us astray, and put a lot of rules and stuff on us that is not
And
God's will.
condemnation.
Hmm.
And you know what? It's so interesting that were you talking about the onion and how we're going through this journey of salvation. Sometimes I'm so grateful that God doesn't deal with everything at once, that
Oh
it's
no, he'll kill
actually
you.
journey. And because like sometimes I'm so not ready, and I'm asking him, oh my goodness, I've been Christian for so long. How come you didn't bring it up this earlier? I could like work on this earlier. Why it's right now? And I hear Holy Spirit says to me, you wasn't ready. That was
Mm-mm.
not the right time. And now it is. And now you see it. Because sometimes like I'm like, okay, okay, fix me, heal me, do this
Yes.
and that and that. But it's not gonna work because there's not the right time, not the right place. And I'm not the right person today to deal with this today. God knows right timing, and He knows where to bring it up. And sometimes when I'm rushing, and then I look back, I'm thinking, whoa, that's why it works today. Because like last year I was not in the right place to deal with this specific situation. But sometimes God brings up something so big, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I should be already dealing with that because I've been with you, God, for so long. Why it's right now? But now, after having this experience for 10 years, I'm like, it's the right time. It's the right time for me. God thinking it's the right time. That's the right time. So instead of asking why you didn't ask me before, why do I have to do now, I should have deal with this before. So that's bring layers of the failure, condemnation, like I
Yeah.
should be better, I should. I just say, okay, this is the right time to deal with this problem. I do have this problem. Okay, what should I do about it? Rather than thinking like negative, I go, okay, God, thank you for showing me this. Or sometimes I even ask, something happening, I need your help, I need you to show me because I don't see it. And sometimes
Yes.
he's like, just hit me. He's like, how about pride? Whoa, I have pride? What kind of Christian am I? Okay, I'll deal with the pride. And sometimes it's so surprising because when it's so close, we assume that we dealt with this by ourselves. And then when he brings this up again, you're like, whoa, I really need to look into it. So yeah,
Mhm.
just trust and obey.
Yeah, and he's also such a gentleman. He's not
Yeah.
going to have you deal with painful things before
Mm.
you're ready, because it would do more damage than harm, and he knows what we're able to deal with. So I love that it's layers, but again, like you, I want to hurry, and so because it's like, oh, you get freedom from something and you get a revelation on something, so you're excited. Like tomorrow you're like, okay, what now, God? And it's like, no, slow your roll. Let's let this one settle.
This
you
one,
know?
yes, for sure.
Well, so Lena, I know that you are walking into a new space right now. So tell us a little bit about what God's doing in your life now.
Absolutely. So when I have my hair salon, when I come out from sixth grade and um, I have to replace something, and then I met my husband and I went to school. So I thought I gonna have a normal life. So I'm like, okay, how the people doing? Because 4 years I didn't know Jesus yet. So I was trying to imitate like normal people who live 9 to 5, learn how to behave, what they saying, what they doing. And I thought of if I would achieve, diplomas, medal, trophies, and a recognition, build a name, that's what gave me worth, peace, and value, because that's what I was seeking. And then when I met my husband, have a baby, have a clean home, I assume everything that my parents didn't give me, if I have that, that would give me worth, peace, and value. And then I thought, if I build a business, if I make money, if I'm like, so I try all of that. And I'm so grateful that you say that he's gentleman, but on top of it, he knows us like very intimately. He knew that I have the checklist, and I believe if I achieve everything, that's where I'm gonna get my joy, peace, value, wholeness again. So he allowed me to have it, and I got everything, and I built my business. I call it my empire. So of course, when you building your empire, you're not serving God. So, but he allowed me to see that it's still gonna be empty. I literally have this like hole in my being that was not filled. And actually I felt more depressed. I felt all my anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, trauma, everything, because I had no drugs, I had no medication, alcohol, or anything. I had suffered with postpartum depression after my daughter, and I never been diagnosed. Like I had really bad health issues. It was terrible. So I believe in that time I live in hell too. And then I met Jesus. And when he called me to just leave everything when I was 40 years old and start from scratch, I believe I just left that and go after God. And that's how I know that I'm in His purpose and plan for me, because I didn't choose this. I just follow Him. And it was every day like, okay, God, what I'm doing, what I'm doing. But after 3 years, I know what I'm doing because it's brought me clarity. It's brought me where He want me to be. But in the beginning, I was I was first of all, I grieve my dream because I'm like, okay, so my empire didn't make it or whatever, like, and I thought that's what's gonna be it, and now I'm starting from scratch. That's how he led me to publish my book, sharing my story. Then I hired a speaking coach. I start kind of like molding my story into more hopeful rather than make people like cry heartbroken. So I want them to see God and how much He loves sinners rather than how tragic my life was, because I don't cry over my life. So I don't want you to have that either. And then he led me to Christian leadership life coaching that I've been almost 2 years that I learned how to coach people, especially women, because my heart always been after women. And that's what I chose to do it when I went to my cosmetology course, because I want women to feel beautiful and confident and have a safe space for them to share. Because you go to your hairstylist, you pour everything on
Oh
them
yeah.
because it's easier to share with the kind of strangers, but then becoming the friends. So I realized going into coaching, because I thought I'm starting from scratch at 40, but what I was doing for last 16 years, I still was mentoring women. I was giving them advice. I was holding, loving on them, and try to make their life better. So the coolest part about this program, it's Christian, so it's all about love of God. So it was a huge self-development tool for me. So it took me on another level with God, and it's taught me be more and more like Jesus, which is so beautiful.
Thank you so much for joining us today for part 1 of this amazing episode with Lena. And we will be back next week with a second part to this episode, and you will not want to miss it.